to Woman on Purpose. I am Benedicta, and I'm so glad that you are able to join me today. Today we will be going on to the theme of walking on purpose. In the last two videos we discussed being alive on purpose, and now we're transitioning into the area of walking on purpose. Now, where does this whole thing about walking on purpose come from? Well, I have a scripture for you as always, so let's just get straight into it. The scripture I'm going to be reading is from Psalms 116 verse 8 to 9. I'm reading from the New Living Translation, and it says, "He saved me from death, my eyes from tears, my feet from stumbling. And so I walk in the Lord's presence as I live here on earth." Psalm 116 verse 8 to 9 in the Good News Bible translation says, "The Lord saved me from death. He stopped my tears and kept me from defeat. And so I walk in the presence of the Lord in the world of the living." Now, if you have been following the videos, you will recall that in the last video, I talked about the woman in Revelation chapter 12 and the battle line that was drawn between the woman and the enemy, how the enemy tried to pursue the woman, and how God came through and saved her and prepared a place for her. So now we're moving on from there. We hear the praise going up to God, saying, "Thank you for keeping me from death. Thank you for keeping me from tears, keeping me from falling." This just reminds me of that same woman, right? The woman who was preserved. I can imagine her making this proclamation to God. And so I say to you who's watching this video, the sickness did not kill you. The floods of the enemy, they did not drown you. The challenges came, yes, and you at some point, I'm sure you thought you was not going to make it, but some way or another, you've come through and you're alive. You're alive. You are alive. You are alive. You are here to tell the story. And so now what happens? Now that you have made it through those challenges, what do? Because it's been a challenging time, do we go and rest and bask in the peace that is now our portion? Do we look for a hiding place? Do we go and rest in the do we go and stay in the church, lock ourselves up there and trust that because we're there no other challenges will come our way? No. The psalmist here says, "You've done all these things for me, so now I walk in the presence of the Lord." Not only do I walk in the presence of the Lord, I do it in the land of the living. And as you can probably tell, this is where the idea, or this is where walking on purpose comes from. And looking at the word walk, the word walk is an active word. It's a doing word. It's a verb, as they would say in English. I'm not a professor of English, but yeah, it's a verb. It's active. That tells me that there is something that you should be doing. Right? So when we talk about walking, it's not just literally the physical walking, moving from point A to B. Yes, this is necessary. And yes, it is appropriate for what we're going to talk about. But it's more than that. We can expand it beyond that. And it talks about the things that we should be doing and where we should be doing. And the Bible says in the land of the living. So I hope by now, from that small and brief explanation, you agree with me when I say that, woman, there is a walk and a work that you should be doing now that you are alive, now that you are kept on purpose. It is this walk and it is this work that you need to do that is the very reason why God created you. It is the reason why, in spite of the challenges, the enemy could not knock you out. And it is the reason why you were kept alive. It is the reason why God will continue to keep you alive. And it is the thing that you should be occupied with until Jesus returns. This is not the time to sit down and enjoy the luxuries of life. This is a time to do a work. He's kept you for a work. And so therefore we need to understand and fulfill that work ultimately. But before we get into that, I want to look and explore an area that I think is very important before we start looking at all the things to do. And this is the area of understanding the times and the seasons. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 talks about the fact that to every purpose under the sun, to everything under the sun, sorry, there is a time and a season. To every purpose under the sun, there is a time and a season. God works in times and seasons. He's the author of the times and seasons. Genesis chapter 1 talks about how God put said, let there be light, and he put the sun in the sky and the moon, and he says, let them be to declare the seasons and the times and the days, the years. We already know, I'm sure, from our, is it geography or or is it astrology or whatever it is, the rotation of the sun, the coming out of the moon. They determine the years, they determine the days, the months that we are in. These things are all created by God. If times and seasons were not important, there would be no need for them. But as a woman on purpose, it is important to understand the times and the seasons that we are in, so that it will accurately guide us in the work that we should be doing and in the walk that we should be going on. Psalms chapter 1 verse 3 also talks about how the children of God are like trees that grow beside a stream, that bear fruit at the right time, and whose leaves do not dry up. They succeed in everything they do. That's to tell you that even the other creations of God, the trees and everything else, have a time in which they are to bear the fruit that God has created them to bear. It's not that they create fruit all the time. It's not that they continuously grow, and there is a time. We all know how harvest works, right? How planting, and you sow a seed, you wait for some time, you water it, wait for some time again, it grows, still wait for it to grow, and then it becomes the harvest time, right? We don't just sow a seed and pluck it out tomorrow, or we don't just click our fingers and then there's fruit, apple, tree, whatever. There is a time for everything. But what I want to explore even further before we look at walking on purpose, as I think this is very important, is that there is a general time and season for everything, or for nations, or for the environment. Maybe if you're in the UK or whatever, there is a time, for example, Brexit. There is a time when politics goes on or whatever in your nation. There is a time for a people, but there is also a time for you as an individual. And where do I get all of this from? If we look at Acts chapter 1 verse 6-7, we see a situation here where the disciples are questioning Jesus, and they say to him, it says verse 6, so when the apostles were with Jesus, they kept asking him, Lord, has the time come for you to free Israel and restore our kingdom? And he replied, the Father alone has authority to set those dates and times. They are not for you to know. So there's a time and there's a plan and a purpose for a nation. But there is also a time and a purpose for you as an individual. Where do I get that from? If we look at Job chapter 22 verse 29, it says, when men say they are cast down, then thou shalt say, there is a lifting, and he shall save the humble person. That's to say that a group of people might be doing one thing, but it is possible for an individual in that group, it is possible for a few people in that group to be declaring and experiencing another thing. When the children of Israel were to come out of Egypt, the whole nation of Egypt was in mourning. They were mourning for their firstborn sons. They were mourning for the defeat of their crops. They were mourning for the death of their cattle. But the children of Israel, they were celebrating their freedom. As a woman on purpose, when you understand your own time and your own season, it is possible for you to be celebrating. It is possible for you to be rejoicing in a time that is devastating for others. Now, I'm not going to talk about or look at, the devastation of others. I'm talking about us as children of God, as a woman on purpose. If you can understand your time and understand your season, you will know that there is so much blessings, there is so much joy, there is so much freedom, there is so much potential that can be enjoyed in your time and in your season. What would have happened if the children of Israel were mourning with the Egyptians? They would have been sitting there when God is opening the way for them to get out and be free once and for all. We have to understand our times and our seasons. And how do I relate this to our modern day and the times that we are living in? We are now in the times where technology, the internet, globalization has taken over. We're in a time like no other where communication is like that. You can get anything at the drop of a hat. I talked about the natural course of events in terms of growing crops. There was a time, or there used to be a time, when you could only get certain fruits at certain seasons. Now we are living in a time when if you want an apple every single day of the year, you can have it. There's nothing like waiting for, the seed to grow and blah, blah, blah. We are in a time where food is being genetically modified and created so that we can have it on tap and on demand. We are in a time where not only have they done that with food and fruits or whatever, we're in a time where they're doing it even with people, and they're trying to create people, and we all know the modern technology that's available. We're in a time where there are rumors of wars according to the word of the Bible and according to what we see on the news. This nation is about to fight that nation is killing this nation, all that kind of stuff. Terrorism, this is the time that we are living in. We're in a time where women go to work. That's amazing. In about maybe 50 years ago, women stayed at home whilst only the men went to work. The times have changed. We're in a time where the godliness is decreasing and the ungodliness is increasing. You don't need to look too far to hear about all the kinds of crazy laws that have been passed, whether it's about gay marriage or it's about people lying or committing fraud and covering up, institutions or whatever. This seems to be the norm. This is the time that we are living in. Why am I going on about this? Because to be able to efficiently do the work that God has created us to do, we need to understand the wider context in which we are doing it. In order to be able to move from point A to point B, we need to know where we're going. Nobody gets up and just starts walking. There needs to be a purpose in mind, but you need to understand the environment in which you're walking. Even if God says to you, get up now and walk from, from England to America. You need to understand the context. Is it going to be cold? Is it going to be raining? Do I need a hat? Do I need an umbrella? How many days does it take to get there? We need the context to help us be successful in the journey and in the walk that God has called us to. I've talked about the general times and seasons that we live in. How about the individual times and seasons? Remember, I said that there's a general time and a general season for the nation, but also for an individual. So for you as an individual, what is your time and your season? Do you have children? Do you not have children? Are you a business owner? Are you a career person? Are you at the beginning of your journey? Are you in the middle? Are you at the end? You may be in the time where you have young ones and you're doing school runs, juggling a young family. Or for you, you might have already gone past that season. Your children are basically adults, and in fact, you have grandchildren. And so going to school and doing school runs and the school timetable and calendar doesn't apply to you. Maybe in your business, you're just starting out, and so it's a time of planting, it's a time of grinding, it's a time of sowing, it's a time of building. Or maybe your business is well established, and so it's a time of expansion. And so you're looking at other areas of diversification. You need to understand your time and your season so that you can do the work appropriate for that time and that season. When it is raining is not the time to be planting seed. Your seed should have been in the ground before the rain comes. And that's how the harvest comes. Likewise, when it is raining, that is not the time to harvest. Season. And God has ordained life in such that things go precept upon precept. As a single lady, there are things that you can do that a married woman cannot do. And as a married woman with no children, there are things that you'll be able to do that a married woman with children just can't do. It doesn't write things off, but maybe you need to plan, or you need to rearrange your schedule in a way that a single person just doesn't have to. An individual person can get up and go to whatever country they like. They don't have to seek permission from anyone or whatever, or seek permission from their husband. But, when you're in a union, there are different rules, there are different requirements. In that season, there's a different way that you need to operate. And so I'm not going to dwell on the examples too much. I'm sure we all get the point. But I bring all of these things out, like I said, to say that before you start looking for all manner of things to get engaged in and to engage yourself, and be sure to understand where you are at, where you and your family are at. It's not just about you and your season, but it's also about your family season. It's about your husband's season. It's about your children's season. You are a woman that is submitted to her husband, remember. You're a woman that is going to give birth and have children and carry them to full maturity. All these people play an important role, and it's important that we align ourselves to the relevant season. A lot of people these days get carried away trying to be like somebody else, trying to do what somebody else is doing. If so and so has has a different context in which she's doing it, you will kill yourself, or kill your home, kill your dream, kill your vision, kill your family, kill your marriage, trying to be like so and so who doesn't have any should I say, not liabilities, who doesn't have any dependencies, and vice versa. As someone who doesn't have dependencies, why restrict yourself unnecessarily or give yourself unnecessary heartache saying, I'm waiting till I get married before I do this, I'm waiting till I get married to do XYZ? Understand your time, understand your season. And so I've talked about, the natural times and seasons in terms of, for example, family, business, etc. But what about the spiritual times? Are you in a time when God is saying, wait on me, be still? I don't want you rushing around talking to everybody and doing this, that, and that. Just wait on me and be still. Are you in a time when God is saying, I've told you what to do, go out and do it? Are you in a time where God is saying, I want you to study my word more? Are you in a time where God is saying, I want you to pray and fast more, intercede? What is God saying to you, even from a spiritual point of view? Of course, again, there is the corporate body. Your church might be doing a fast. Your church might be doing praise. Your church might be doing worship. There might be a word for your church for a year, for a time, for a month, or whatever. That is all well and good, and it is important to get in line with that general time, that general theme, that general word. But as an individual, as children who have direct access to God, there should also be a word and a time for you as an individual. Is God saying to me, I need to take time away from social media, less time on the phone, less time posting videos and watching videos, and more time just meditating? Is God saying to you, no, I want you to spread that which I've given to you to everyone, let everyone know? Is God saying to you, just like, for example, with a book, or for example, there is a time of meditating and writing, and then there's a time when you've finished and it's all about publishing and marketing and advertising and just spreading it. What is God saying to you about your own time? What is God saying to you about your own season? Even as a family, are you in a time, you and your husband and your children, are you in a time of waiting? Are you in a time where God is saying, stay here? Are you in a time of expansion? Are you in a time of growth? Is God saying, move from this place to the next? We remember in the Bible, in Genesis, where God says, I think it's Genesis 12, Genesis 11, where God says to Abraham, now the Lord appeared to Abraham and said, get up, you and your wife, you and your children, your sons, blah, blah, blah. Move to a place that I will show you. There's a time of you and your family staying in a position, but there's also a time when God might say, get up and move. If we're before we get carried away saying, oh yes, you know what? God has kept me through the challenges. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go build this. I'm going to go open this business. I'm going to go have these children. I'm going to go get married. I'm going to get to the height of my career. Before we get carried away in all of that, I just want us to stop and understand for a moment and reason that we need to understand our own time and our own season. How can we work or operate efficiently and accurately in the work that God has called us to if we do not understand the times and the seasons? And I implore you as a Christian, the time of putting your head down and hiding in the church and just praying and just fasting is over. It is not going to work. We as the woman on purpose that God has created to do, created us to be, we need to understand the wider context in which we are operating for us to have maximum impact and maximum efficiency. And so when I talk about walking on purpose, in essence, I'm referring to the things that God has called you to do with the time that he has blessed you with on the earth. The truth is that there are many things, and there are so many things and so many works that we'll be able to do. In fact, there are so many things that we must do, but there are also so many things that are not very important or maybe not appropriate for a certain time and need to be deferred, and vice versa. If we look at Ecclesiastes 3, we talk, it says there's a time for mourning and a time for giving birth. There's a time for death and life. There's a time for building, planting, etc. There's so many different examples in there. if we are going to get it right, we need to understand the right time so that we don't miss what God is doing. As a woman on purpose, it is your responsibility to understand the times and the seasons. Jeremiah 33 verse 3 says, call upon me and I will show you secret things which thou knowest not. If you don't understand the time that you are in, call upon God and let him direct you, let him lead you, so that you don't kill yourself trying to live a life at a certain specific time that you're not supposed to be living. So that you don't try to overstretch yourself, or so that you also don't cripple yourself. That's another, sometimes people overstretch themselves and they want to, do what they should be doing in 5 years' time now. Sometimes people also shy away from the fact that God is saying you need to run, and they're just trying to take it slow and they're crawling. No, we need to understand. A woman on purpose has discernment. If you are confused in any way, I pray for clarity right now. If you don't know what you should be doing at this time, I pray for understanding right now. If you are mixed up, or you're not just there's confusion, I just pray for understanding, a spirit of understanding, that the Spirit of the Lord would rest upon you, and that you would receive the insight that you need, that you would receive the encouragement that you need, that you would receive the sign that you need, that you would receive whatever you need to understand your time and your season, and to be able to operate at your time and your season. The time and the seasons will always change. But I pray that as a woman on purpose, you will be able to move with God as the times and the seasons change, so that you are not left behind and so that you're not running ahead of him. And so I'm going to leave it there for today. Like I say, we will be looking at the different areas of how to walk on purpose. But for now, I think it's important that we just take a moment to stop and consider this idea, or consider the need to understand the times and the seasons and the purpose that God has called us to. And so I am going to end there. And so I say, may the Lord bless you, may the Lord keep you, may he cause his face to shine upon you, may he be gracious unto you. As a woman on purpose, may you be victorious all your days, and may you bruise the head of the enemy as you walk out. Have a blessed